Welcome to the Naperville Moms Network. Today we would like to welcome Dr. Inderjeet Gill to our show. Dr. Gill is from Pinnacle Dermatology and is very passionate about our skin and self-esteem. When asked why she chose dermatology, she answered, because skin is so visible. That is so true. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
I've had plenty of different issues with my self-esteem over the years, but for some reason my complexion and skin has not been one of them. Has any of you struggled with your skin overall?
I have, for sure. And it's interesting because I think it's one of the last things that one of the last specialties that we go to visit.
Sure.
And some of that does have to do with self-esteem because you're embarrassed. As a woman, you know, we feel we can just cover up, right? We can spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars just to cover up the problem and maybe it'll go away. And we take care of ourselves. We take vitamins. We try to, you know, eat a balanced diet and exercise, and we go to our doctors for checkups, and dermatology should be no different. I mean, skin's actually our largest organ, right? So you should be still eating a healthy diet and exercising, having home maintenance, and going to a dermatologist for not just the face either and the complexion. I mean, just all over. What do you see when someone makes an appointment with you? What are the typical ages, issues? Are they waiting until the last minute and they have a concern, or do people maintain? What do you think?
You see a little bit of both. So I see children all the way to people that are over 100 years old. So it's a nice variety in dermatology. You meet those that come in immediately with a problem, which is what you want because you can handle it and take care of it. Right. And you meet some that maybe have put their head in the sand for a little bit longer than you wished. But for the most part, you know, most people have someone around them that's encouraging them to say, come, go on in, someone can help you with that. And that's probably the most important thing, that with dermatology, most things that are so accessible to us to treat and make an improvement. You know, it can help your self-confidence, and it can obviously, from a medical perspective, really keep you from having further disease. So getting in there as quickly as you notice there's something going on is huge, I think.
Yeah, and it's something that can be reoccurring too. It's not always, this is my problem, you fixed it, and now I'm fine forever.
Right.
You know, like I had acne when I was in my late teens, I would say, and did go to the dermatologist and did the whole Accutane and everything. And then I was fine for a while. Then I had children. And now all of a sudden, you know, here it is years and years later. And so I had to find, you know, an at-home regimen that worked for me, and luckily found that. But now, being at that age where it's kind of the trifecta, I did all that sun damage and tanned, now it's catching up. You're still breaking out a little bit, you know, in that kind of middle age, and also aging.
Right.
So it's so important to just take care of ourselves head to toe.
Agreed.
I know my dad has had numerous things, you know, moles removed from his face, or precancerous or even cancerous things removed. So every once in a while I'm, you know, showering or laying, I'm like, oh my God, what is that? Is that normal? And I've seen a dermatologist. I haven't been for a while, so maybe I'll come and find you. But there definitely are things where I look down and I'm like, did that grow? Did that change? What would be your recommendation of things like that? I mean, obviously going in to see is there certain things that we should be looking for?
Right. So, you know, my first best advice would be once a month a full skin check yourself.
Okay.
If you have a partner at home or someone you trust, have them help you. Right? You're not going to see the top of your head. There you go. Right? You're not going to see the top of your head. You're not going to see your back that well. So get help. You know, and doing it once a month. You know, I use a lot of my patients, I say, look, if you pay your mortgage, the day you pay your mortgage is the day of your skin check. You're never going to finish, you're never going to forget to pay your mortgage.
Right.
So take a look over, because you know, there's a lot of literature to say that patients spot most of the worrisome things.
Okay.
Looking for changes. Is it a new mole? Is it growing? Is it itching? Is it bleeding? Hey, do I have a sore that keeps coming back in the exact same spot? Why didn't it go away the way we thought it would? Those are some of the things you're looking for.
Okay.
The other interesting thing is that most people will check sun-exposed areas, but melanoma can hit sun-protected sites as well.
Okay.
So it's very just equally important to look at those areas like the palms, the soles, things that aren't sun-exposed. Because those
And
those
I've
can
never
also
looked at
right,
the bottom
because
of
I
my
think that's
feet.
something people don't think about, but is super important.
Interesting.
I never even thought to look at the places that aren't exposed
I
to
know.
the sun.
So focused on.
So focused on the other thing. Kind of, we were talking about as adults looking at dermatology. I had a son when he was a teenager who went to a dermatologist because of acne. And there's a lot associated, not from a medical perspective, but just the self-esteem perspective. So what tips do you have for parents who might have a teen who is going through some skin issues to keep their self-esteem during the process?
Yeah. So, there's acne and self-esteem are very closely related. So, especially in those teenage years, it's a difficult time period to start with.
Right.
It's a challenging time.
It's ugly from beginning to yes.
So, add in the mix of acne, that makes it even more challenging. So a couple things, bring them in as quickly as possible. If you feel that you're not making progress with the at-home treatment regimens, there's so many treatments for, with different levels of intensity of treatment so that you can kind of tailor to who you've got ahead of you so that we can make an improvement. The minute you start to make an improvement, you see that self-esteem go up. And that's so important for them to be able to, achieve their goals. You need that self-esteem to be able to do that. Just keep encouraging them to stay on regimen because that's the hardest part. Acne is a chronic disease. There is no quick fix for most of us. And so, it's the chronicity of it means that you kind of have to keep encouraging them. Hey, did you wash your face this morning?
Yes.
Did you put your medicine
Brush
on?
your teeth, wash your face.
Right. So I think that's sometimes a challenge with my teenage patients is that, they've got so much going on with school and sports and, at the end of the day, they're like, oh yeah, I'm not washing my face.
Right.
But kind of keeping after them, I guess, to just keep encouraging them to keep on regimen, I think is very, very helpful.
That is the hardest part. And my son was an athlete, and so when he would have a helmet on, like that was even worse. And so it became part of like as soon as he was done playing, he should be washing his face, but then again, then he's tired, and then he's in bed, and you're like, no, I need you to wash your face.
That pillowcase.
Right.
I know, right? Isn't that good?
But it's really keeping them and helping them be, but that teaches them also to be, accountable for their own health and wellness, which is something we've talked about before on this show.
Right, that's true.
I agree.
Yeah, no, I can definitely vouch for self-esteem. Like you were saying, there's direct correlation, whether you're a teenager or young child or an adult. I fight eczema, and now it's more manageable and controllable than it was when I was a kid. And it had a lot to do with my self-esteem, feeling, I didn't go to dermatologists and get the assistance when I did, but when I did, it made a huge difference. So what are some of your thoughts on, I hear a lot of kids, especially in a cold environment we live, dealing with eczema, skin conditions. How early should someone work with a dermatologist, and what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so eczema is again another one of those more chronic conditions. Although some percentage of kids will outgrow it by the age of 8, and it'll be a little bit less intense in severity. But again, because of that, it's more chronic management rather than a short-term fix. Eczema itself reduces quality of life quite a bit. You're itchy, you can't sleep, you're scratching. That impairs your ability to function at school. I mean, it all around really affects your health. So skincare, when we look back at what happens in eczema, it's actually just the basic mechanics is a moisturizing defect. And so going back to trying to put the moisture back in the skin, so less showers or baths for the kids.
Which they would love to hear.
I know, right? In the winter, maybe no more than twice a week if they're not truly dirty, right? Lubing up with a good moisturizer, morning and night, as much as it sounds, when you put your pajamas on at nighttime, when you take your pajamas off in the morning time, trying to get that back on, putting it on right after the shower, trapping some of that water. That's your basic skincare to try and keep eczema at bay, but it's not going to work for everyone, and then that's when, having, again, a dermatologist intervene to see if you can calm it down before it really flares too much. Eczema does have a little propensity towards getting infected as well. So again, if you're in a chronic plaque, maybe you need antibiotics, maybe you need something to really get some bacteria out of there to really, that's what's going to allow you to heal.
Okay. How about dietary issues with all skin conditions?
Sure.
Is there any recommendations that you give to your parents or your patients?
So, the dietary, there's lots of controversies. I'm going to start there and say that in medicine, no one seems to agree on this completely. With eczema, I haven't seen a significant dietary association, I will say that. As to, the normal things you hear, a nice balanced diet, good mix of antioxidants in the mix of everything else. The one place where I find diet to be important is acne. And so there's a lot of literature to support that hormone-containing dairy may be triggering acne for some people. So going to a hormone-free dairy, those are going to be like your almond milk, your cashew milk, those may be helpful. And then the other thing you read about is the high glycemic index foods. So whatever runs your blood sugar up quickly is probably not good for you overall, but is not good for your skin as well.
How about water and hydration?
Yeah, so always important. Well hydrated skin is important. I think a lot of those same things that you hear your primary doctor tell you, drink a good amount of water, eat your green leafy vegetables, eat your, your blackberries, your raspberries, where you're going to get your antioxidants. Those are all very, very important. There's some now reports coming about like fish oil and things like that for psoriasis, and they don't have a ton of support, but again, there may be something there as well. With the omega-3s.
It's always amazing how when something internally isn't working right, it shows up and externally on your skin. Like you were talking about being visual.
That's one of the amazing parts of the skin, that you can look at it and you learn so much about a person that way. And so I think it's very important. If you think about, we talked about eczema and dry skin, diabetics will have more dry skin than the average, and it has to do with the sugars in the water being pulled away. And you don't think of it that way, but it is a manifestation on the skin of an internal disease. So it's pretty interesting that way.
And SPF every day, right? Anything
SPF every day.
Doesn't matter if we're having a polar vortex
I know.
a few months back or
So the thought is that there's two main wavelengths of light that get to the surface of the Earth, UVA and UVB. UVB is probably blocked out by your window glass in your car, but UVA is not. And so that's where that, even if you're never going to step outside, you're like, hey, I'm doing
negative 22
I'm just doing drop off and pick up, but still that SPF 30 can be useful for that. And it's interesting, as women, we think a little bit about anti-aging, and UVA is associated a lot with aging. And so it's, again, to keep that in check, that sun protection is also a big deal.
So what would you recommend for sun protection for kids, adults, on a regular basis?
So for on a day-to-day basis, I think an SPF 30 or higher is probably best. If you're going to be outdoors with your kids, I would say step it up a little bit. So there's, again, this is another controversial issue where you get to, is anything higher than an SPF 30 or helpful, right?
True.
But the caveat to that statement is that when they studied in a lab to give you a sunblock number, they put a standardized amount on your skin. And if you don't put that much on, you didn't get that number. And that's the caveat to it. So the way most of us,
that is a really good point.
So the way most of us put it on, I'm not probably getting a 30 out of my bottle of 30. And that's where I say, if your kids are really going to be outside, maybe step up your game closer to that 50 number, because the way we physically put it on,
they want to be in the water. They're like, I mean, it's like, you have to do like a dance. You have to vogue
It is.
to get your child,
You have to keep reapplying.
And
That's the other challenge.
It truly is a challenge. And as of now, the advice is not to use the spray, especially for smaller children. It is really,
but it's so easy to.
I know, it truly is. And it's so hard. They're like running out of your hands as you're trying to get this on there. And their little faces are hard to turn the corners on, near their nose. But they do make some of the sunblock companies do make a little stick version that you can use on the face. That's a little easier to turn the corners near their eyes and things like that.
I use that all the time.
I like that one as well. And there's a few companies out there that have started to work on doing more just the physical blockers, your zinc and titanium dioxide. So there's less chemical blockers in there, which makes us all feel better. Right. So I think that's important. And the other piece of advice I'd say is sun protective clothing has become a really big deal. So your shirt's built in with your UPF 50.
No chemicals.
Exactly. You know, so now it's called a UPF, but that's huge. Putting a rash guard on the kids when they go in the pool, then you're fighting only their face and their legs, right?
Yeah.
A little less body to fight at that point,
Right.
but that's really helpful too. So the hats, the UPF clothing, those can be really make it a lot less. Make you have to fight them a lot less.
Right.
Yeah.
I know we could talk about this for so much longer, but we're going to have to wrap things up. Like Erica said, our skin is our largest organ and one we should take very good care of. Thank you, Dr. Gill, for sharing your knowledge and advice with us this morning. We appreciate you tuning into the Naperville Moms Network. We'll be right back. Thank you.